Hello, I'm Bob Hinkles. I'm a CPA. I've been public accounting for 33 years, and I have a small seminar company, Professional Tax and Accounting Seminars. Um, Today's the third session for the presentation on how to buy and sell, or I'm sorry, how to buy a house and also for real estate investment. I wanted to talk some more about some of the information regarding the purchase of a personal home. But again, remember, all of this applies to investment homes also. And this is very important because I'm not going to have time to repeat it. That's why you have to listen carefully now. Okay, so how long will you be in your home? How long will you be in your home? See, this is really interesting because a lot of people think they're going to buy a house and be there forever. The national average is 7 years. 7 years. Now, there are some places, like where I live now, where people have lived in the same house for 60 years. Not only were they born and raised there, but when their parents died, they gave them the house and they're still in that same house. Okay, that's great news because there's no mortgage. Okay, but most people, it's 7 years. Also, people sometimes move for jobs. If the economy is going bad and you can't find a job where you're growing up or wherever you live now, you move to another place. I mean, that's one of the reasons Washington, D.C., Chicago, New York, one of the reasons those cities are always growing, and Atlanta, again, I'm not trying to leave out anybody, but one of the reasons those cities are always growing is because the businesses are always making more and more money, and people can't find work someplace else, so they go to the cities, okay? Now, the question is, I want you to estimate what you can afford, and unfortunately, you're going to have to use the HUD Government Works website because I just don't have time to get into how to calculate that. That takes almost an hour and a half to really sit down with people and explain what they have to do. Again, I refer back to the previous first talk about asking your friends for help. See, they really can't help you because it takes too much time. You really have to pay somebody to help you with this. But the HUD government, the HUD.gov website has all this information. They have a mortgage calculation where you can calculate the mortgage. Be aware that there's real estate taxes involved and the homeowner's insurance. Okay? All right. Next, though, here's the thing. The bigger the home, I've always heard this. You want to get the biggest house you can. The biggest house you can afford. Okay? Listen carefully to what I'm going to tell you. That is good advice if the market goes up. In other words, a bigger house will appreciate faster. For example, if I have a $100,000 house and the market appreciates 5%, that means that house is now worth 105. Follow? Now, if I had a $50,000 house and it appreciates 5%, it would only be worth 65,000. In other words, it would be, 51,500, excuse me. In other words, the increase, the appreciation would be only half as much. Again, that's assuming that they both had 5% appreciation. The point is, so the bigger the house, the more appreciation you have. But see, here's the downside. The bigger the house, the more depreciation you have if the market tanks. For example, when somebody bought a house for $200,000 in California, and the market, by the way, which is a shack, for $200,000 in California, and the market tanked and went down 40% or 40,000, another house, a cheaper house, would only have gone down 10,000. So it's a two-edged sword. Again, most people always assume that real estate will appreciate in value, that it will go up in value, and that's normally a good thing. But be aware, you just have to know that if the bigger the house, if something happens, it'll go down in value. Also, if you're in a nice neighborhood, remember I stressed a nice neighborhood? If you have a nice neighborhood, the appreciation will go up more. For example, in every city, there's always one suburb that everybody knows, and forgive me for saying it this way, is ritzy titsy. In other words, everybody knows that it's glamour city. Everybody knows that the best people live there. Okay, those houses always cost more in that city, that town, all right? But here's the trade-off. The good news, those houses appreciate faster than the other houses within the same geographical area. So that's one of the reasons you want to do that. And in big cities, neighborhoods are very important. Okay, I mean, there are certain, like if I said the Bronx in New York, I mean, there's some people that wouldn't want to live there. But, and again, I apologize because I actually, when I think about it, I don't know what the Bronx is like. I know they just built a stadium there. But the point is that there's, like Long Island, everybody, Long Island is nice. This is nice. This is nice. We all know certain parts of the city that are nice where other parts are bad. Well, obviously, if you're in a nice part, there'll be more appreciation there. And by the way, again, remember, appreciation is everything. Okay? Okay. The best house in the neighborhood, if you have the nicest house in the neighborhood, you're going to get less appreciation because the rest of the neighborhood will pull the value of your house down. Again, this is not a reason not to buy the house, but you just need to be aware of it. Also, if you have good schools, the appreciation will be higher, okay? If you have good schools. In fact, where we're living now, in one town, they built a new high school. It cost like $150 million. So what did the next town do? Right. They built another high school for $200 million. Okay. And now what's the next town going to do? Right. They're going to build one for $250 million. The point is, by the way, all of that will raise the real estate taxes in that town, won't it? But you see, because they do that, because the schools are good, people will want to move there. It's very important. The same thing with different counties. If you have county services that are very good, more people will move there. Therefore, you should get appreciation. All right, remember, real estate taxes have to be calculated as part of a payment. I mean, here's something amazing. I refinanced my mortgage, and we put a lot of money down on the house because this is not our first house, but a second or third house. And what was amazing was my mortgage is the lowest it's ever been in my life. Absolutely. I'll just make up a number and say it's like $700. That's about it, okay? Ready? But what's my mortgage payment to the bank? It's $1,100. Well, what's $400 a month? That's the real estate taxes and the homeowner's insurance. So all of that impacts upon what the calculation is. Remember that when you're at the HUD website and you're calculating out the mortgage. And by the way, again, you can go to the website for the county and find out the county real estate taxes. But listen very carefully. The county real estate taxes are really very low. The really high taxes are the school district taxes. So the taxes you find on the website for the county, excuse me, are relatively low in comparison to the school taxes. Be aware of that, okay? Again, I mentioned here, normally suggested that you buy the biggest house you can afford for all the reasons stated, but also remember that's one of the things that will cause it to depreciate. It's also important to realize that you must be able to make the payment no matter what happens to you. It's so important. I mean, people think, oh, well, I'll just try to make it work. No, no, no. You got a 30-year commitment. And some people say, well, inflation will help me. And yes, it will. But the economy is going bad. You could end up losing your job. Now, they've passed a whole bunch of laws that help people with short sales, and they can walk away from their debt, and it's not debt forgiveness income. And by the way, you don't need to know what that is. Okay, but listen carefully. It's really important that you and your spouse, whoever, that you sit down and figure out how much can you afford using that website and the information that we've given you, okay? You should save at least 2 months of mortgage payments. You should have a savings account in your bank. And by the way, my wife and I have several. We have our checking account, and then we have what we call the mortgage account, and then we have the toy account, and then we have the car account, and then we have the vacation home account. By the way, we don't have a vacation home. We're saving for one. The point is we have a whole bunch of savings accounts. Okay, you need to have one for mortgage so that you don't even think about touching it. 2 months of mortgage. Okay? In fact, you might want to consider making that part of your closing so that maybe you could borrow that money. And by the way, I appreciate that. Earlier I said don't borrow short-term expenses with long-term money. That's really a true statement. But the bottom line is that you really need to have that cushion. Now, if you both have jobs and you both work, okay, you might want to consider not counting one of the incomes, if it works, and then just taking that income and putting enough aside. Financial planners, people that do financial planning, they suggest you have at least 6 months of all your expenses, which means theoretically 6 months of your wages in a savings account. Okay, and by the way, just a savings account. federally guaranteed insured, no questions asked. Not invested, not in anything else, just in a savings account. And that's to help if you get laid off or if you get injured or whatever. Okay, for rental and investment properties, this is really, really important. Okay, if you're going to buy a rental property, appreciation is king. You never, I always joke and say, you should never say never. You almost never want to purchase a house to rent that's not going to appreciate in value. If it doesn't appreciate in value, you are literally throwing your money away. Because you see, you could take that same money and invest it in something and get a 3-4% return on your investment. Again, the reason rental properties are good as an investment is that they have to appreciate, theoretically, at least as fast as what you would get in a savings account. Because remember, most people are borrowing money to buy the rental property, correct? And so what happens? You're incurring additional expenses. Yes, I know the rent's paying it, okay? But the bottom line is most rental properties are negative cash flows for 2 to 3 years. Listen carefully. They're theoretically negative tax losses for a number of years, but they're usually a negative cash flow for 3 to 5 years, which means you have to come up with money, okay? Money that you would normally save and put aside. So the point is, if it doesn't appreciate in value, then rental properties are ridiculous. I had a relative who came to me one time when he found out I did this course in real estate, and he goes, I want to invest in real estate. So I went through this whole thing, okay? And he went and bought, really, I'm embarrassed to say this, he purchased he became a slum landlord. I was still, to this day I laugh because he bought the property. He said, come on, I want to show you the property I bought. And I walked in the neighborhood and I felt afraid for my life. And I said, my God, why did you buy this? And he goes, well, I needed someplace for my kid to live, and this was all I could afford. So he actually rented it to his kid and his family, and I was beside myself. I couldn't imagine doing this. I would never do that to my kid. I would have my kid live in my basement before I put him in this house, okay? But the point was is after about 5 years, the kid said, or after like 6 months, the kid said, I can't live here, Dad. This is too dangerous. And so he moved out and he rented it to some other people, blah, blah, blah. Bottom line, in 4 years, he had lost thousands of dollars and he had to sell the property at a loss. So again, I repeat, appreciation is king. If you want to buy a rental property, it has to be in a nice place. It has to be in a nice place. If you have enough money, you want it to be a really nice house. Why? Because nice houses attract good, decent people. And also, they normally have money. Now, if they're good, decent people with a lot of money, why are they renting? Well, it's very simple. They've been assigned someplace because of a job. My father had about 25 rental properties in the Chicago area where I grew up, and he rented only to the naval officers from the Naval Air Station that was located on the western side of the city. It was phenomenal. It was just phenomenal. By the way, I recommend if you can rent if you buy Army bases or anything, or Navy bases, Air Force, whatever. If you could get that type of business, you would be very happy because they're officers. Most of those people are officers, and remember that movie, An Officer and a Gentleman? It's really true. It's really true. So again, appreciation. They have to appreciate. In fact, for a lot of my clients, the first thing they want to buy, I tell them, okay, what you want to do is go to a vacation area, okay? Again, I don't know where your vacation areas are or whatever, but that's what you want to do, okay? Why? Because I'm almost certain they'll appreciate in value. All right. B, inflation is, by the way, in the notes, appreciation is king. It's king of the castle, okay? Inflation is the queen because as inflation happens, okay, you end up with tremendous savings because you're paying a loan with inflated dollars. Okay? For example, when I was a kid, and I'm quite old, when I was a kid, a bubble gum ball cost a penny. Okay? Today, that same bubble gum ball costs 25 cents. All right? If I can pay for this penny with my 25 cents, does everybody see that I could have gotten 25 of these things? And so that's why inflation is queen. Okay, now again, and I'll make a joke, same thing. What are the three most important things in purchasing real estate, investment real estate? Location, location, location. It's always the same. By the way, what's the three most important things in retail? Location, location, location. It's all the same. Oh, I'll throw this out. I use these jokes in my seminars. What are the three most important things in tax work? Documentation, documentation, documentation. See, that's what I'm telling you. You have to document all this stuff. This is what you need to do. All right. Remember, someday also with the rental real estate, someday you're going to have to sell. So remember all the things I talked about the other day? The same exact thing is true now. You have to look at all the things going on in the county, in the city. What are the tax rates? How are they working? What are they looking forward to? Are they trying to grow? Is there stuff? Is it a vibrant community or isn't it? There's so many things that happen. Okay. So again, there's also the size of the house. Be careful. And by the way, here's I just thought of this, and I apologize. It's in my other seminar, and I didn't think to add it to this presentation. Back when I first started out, and by the way, as a quick aside, I was a junior high school math teacher for 8 years before I became a CPA. When I was a junior high school math teacher, I was talking to some of the principals, and I said, boy, I really have a hard time making ends meet. And they said, well, one of the things that most of us have done is that we all went out and bought duplexes. And what they did, a duplex, by the way, is a house. It's like two townhouses side by side. So you have a building, and it's split in half, okay? And so you have like 2 or 3 stories on either side, and there's a wall in between them. And so they have the duplex. And what they did was they bought it, and they lived on one side, and they rented out the other, okay? And the rent they were able to charge paid most of the mortgage, so they were able to save some money. And then after about 7 or 8 years of saving money, they put it aside, and then they actually left the other side of the duplex and moved bought their own home, and then rented out both sides of the duplex. Okay, so, there's another possibility for a rental investment, all right? Remember I talked about old homes? I actually have a client who has a home in a very urban setting. It's in one of the good neighborhoods in the city near some of the cultural district things. And it's a huge house. It's amazing. I don't know who owned it before, all right? But it's only the husband and wife. And so what happens? They actually live on the first floor. They rent out the second floor, and they rent out the third floor. Now, there are rules that are applied to there, like they had to put in special fire, what do you call it? Fire, I'm trying to think of the word, I apologize. Fire escapes, so that the people would be able to get out, and they had to build different entrances for the people. But the bottom line is that they now are living in a house of their dreams with their wraparound porch, and they have people living above paying the mortgage. Okay? So that's good. But again, remember, you're going to sell that. Now, one of the things about rental, if you have a rental property, you're going to have headaches because people are going to call you for the stupidest things. It's just amazing to me what people think you're going to take care of. I remember I told you my father had the rental properties. I'll never forget this. The phone rang one night at like 1 o'clock in the morning, and I could hear a person talking on the end, and my dad said, "Yep, it sure is," and he hung up the phone. And I said, "Dad, what was that about?" And he goes, "Well," he said, "my tenant called to tell me that the light bulb was burned out." Okay. The point being is, yep, it sure is. Go fix it yourself. But you're going to get phone calls like that. Just be aware. Okay. Now, the other nice thing about rental property, your costs incurred to take care of that rental property are deductible, like broken windows and things of that nature. Plus, if you have a rental property in Orlando, Florida, it would probably be very important that you would at least visit that rental property at least once or twice a year to make sure that it was in good, pristine condition. Plus, you could do some cleanup. Okay. Now, if you drove down there to do cleanup, the IRS rules basically are if a trip is more than 50% business, then the trip is business and you get to write off the travel. So let's say that you went down, let's say you're in New York, you drive down to Florida, that's a 2-day drive, it's a 2 days back, and I spend 1 day working on the rental property, okay? That's 5 days. That means you can spend 4 days at Disney World and still write off the other 5 days. Now listen carefully, you cannot write off the 4 days at Disney World, okay? Let's be honest about that. You're out. But the travel, the gas, the mileage, all that stuff, okay, the meals, the hotels, well, the hotel in between, would be deductible because it's an investment property. By the way, if it was a vacation home, then none of it would be deductible. And you see, that's the beauty of the rental property. Okay. Also, no matter what, always get a lease agreement. If you have friends that are attorneys, that would be good. You could also turn and go to, websites have lease agreements and whatever. Just make sure that the people, that again, it's you understand what you're getting into, so you're not going to get hammered too badly. Okay. I suggest the lease agreement spell out everything that they have to pay. Like you tell them you have to change all the light bulbs. You're responsible for light bulbs and changing them. By the way, if you tell them they have to buy their own light bulbs, you know what they're going to do when they leave? Yes, they're going to take the light bulbs. I'm telling you right now. But the point is that, again, that's just one of the things that helps you stay out of all that trouble. Also, if you do any improvements to the rental property, any improvements whatsoever are deductible. So you should be able to turn around and take out, like if you added central air conditioning or you added something or whatever. And by the way, there's actually people, I throw this out for a thought process for investment property. If you're an older couple, I've had clients who have taken and bought a property someplace where they wanted to retire. And it's relatively small because that's what they want, okay? And now notice, they're not looking to sell it. That's where they're going to live, 5 or 10 years. And then they just go and they start making improvements to it, and they're able to depreciate it because it is a rental property. Okay? And all that's totally acceptable, totally within the parameters of the law. Okay? Now, there's other tax deductions that are involved in all of this with rental real estate. I usually cover them in other seminars, but I'll just touch upon a few right now. One would be that any travel that you did for that stuff would be deductible. You should be able to go to quote unquote visit the rental property. It really should not be a problem as long as it's documented what you did when you were there. Oh, and by the way, a full day's work according to the Internal Revenue Code is 4 hours. So if you went and worked on the house for 4 hours, continuous hours, let's say from 9, well, no, let's make it 10 to 2:30 or 3 o'clock, okay, you then would be able to pack up your golf clubs and go play golf for the afternoon. I didn't want you going out at 1 o'clock in the afternoon. The point is that that counts as a business day, as a day that you're allowed to do it. The second thing is another item that's deductible is, of course, any advertising that you might do. Okay. Now, the other thing too is if you have a large enough enterprise, or if you have 2 or 3 rental properties, for example, like there's one client where they have like 7 or 8 rental properties, and we literally have called it I'll use my name, the Henckels Group LLC. I'm sorry, the Henckels Rental Group LLC. And what we did was we printed up baseball hats, we printed up T-shirts, with that on there. We have a whole bunch of things, frisbees, okay, the whole 9 yards, okay. Why? Well, because we actually take them out in the neighborhoods and pass them out to people in case people are looking for rental stuff, okay. But let's be honest, obviously they're probably going to keep some for themselves because I don't know that you can give them all away. The other thing that would work too would be if you had any parking or any phone calls that are involved, any attorney's fees, any accounting fees. Remember that when you file a Schedule C, the Schedule A, the tax preparation is limited to only to over 2% of your adjusted gross income. For many people, that wipes out their tax preparation fees. But on a Schedule E, where the rental property would go, that would be completely deductible. Okay, and here's another thing. You might have to buy a lawnmower to be able to mow all the rental properties, like a riding lawnmower. And of course, you might have to buy a trailer, and then you might have to buy a hitch for your car so you can tow the riding lawnmower. All of those things would be deductible under the business expenses because they really are expenses you incurred because of the rental properties. There's a lot of things that you're able to do. And just to refresh or go over one more time about some of the items that are for the rental, the real estate investment rental. The location is really, really important, and the size is important because you see that, and the location and size are so important because, again, the key is to try to make sure that you're getting enough rent to pay for the mortgage costs. Again, be careful because, and by the way, the utilities should be paid by the renters. That's very important. You do not want that with you. Do not do a rent, rent include utilities. Because here's the problem. If you give anybody anything for free, how much will they use? And the answer is all they can. I still remember when I was in college, I had rent free. Utilities free. The rent was a little higher, but I thought, well, it's easier. I don't have to worry about like registering with the utility company and all that. And this was when I was in college. But what happened was it was like a 5-story building. And what happened, this was amazing. It turned out that the people on the bottom floors were always cold. Why? Because heat always rises. And so what would happen? The heat would rise and the people on the top have their windows open. And so all that, I mean, all I could think of was all of this heat is just being wasted. You know, it's just, and who's paying for it? The owner of the building, which would be you. And so that's why you make the people pay their own utility bills. We will talk more about other issues and things in the next presentation. Thank you for your time and attention.
Find time to talk to your parents about getting older.
We can do it the day after I die, okay? I'm busy.
No matter who you are, it's not easy talking about aging. For help, go to voa.org/talk. A message from Volunteers of America.
Filing for Social Security online. 9 out of 10 experts agree it's groovier than a Brooklyn hot dog. Or crepes Suzette.
When cousins are two of a kind.
Once you figure out how to speak your kids' language, well, you don't really have to say much at all. From the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints.